Okay, so we're sitting here in Kayleigh's downtown apartment, which is interesting because that's the name of your last CD.
Yeah.
And I have known your music for a very, very long time. But I'm still going to ask you the question, Celeigh, is what got you started in music?
I think it was actually, well, the first time I sang on stage, I was 4 years old. And it might have been my mother.
Perhaps.
Perhaps I had a stage mother at that young of an age. But she encouraged me to perform, and she drew pictures of the song because I couldn't read yet. And I said I would only perform if the pastor's wife played piano. And then I performed, and I think just singing is something that I've always loved so much and that I've always done, and then having a mother who really encouraged it. It was just kind of something that came pretty naturally to me, and then eventually became the thing that I wanted to do. I started writing songs when I was 12, so by 12 I had already decided that this was what I was doing and what I wanted to do. So I would say the two main people in my family that I remember playing music for a living were my Uncle Ken and my Auntie Bev. And they both played country music, and they played in pubs, they played in bars. Yeah, so I knew that they played, I knew that it was there, I knew that my dad loved to sing, and I knew my family sung because whenever there were funerals, all of my aunties would get together and they'd be singing together. And I knew that it was in them, and I knew that they loved it. But yeah, it wasn't something that wasn't part of my formative years or anything like that.
So can you tell me a little bit about where you get that creative ingenuity from? Because it's a remarkable thing to put emotion into words and then put words to music and then put music to a venue.
Yeah, and even further than that, I've learned that it's, once you're in the venue, it's reading the crowd and deciding what it is that they actually connect with, and then finding that, because that's what's most important to me, is like feeling that I'm having like an energetic connection with people, and so it's like, it's beyond, writing my experience, but it's writing it in a way that I'm hoping it resonates with other people so that we can have that connection. Because live performance has always been number one, like my favorite thing. That's when I'm most free, is when I'm standing on stage in front of like 100 to thousands of people. Like that's when I feel like in my power the most. And so writing for me, it took a while for me to even feel like I was a songwriter, because when you're just writing your own experience, it's kind of like you're journaling in a way, and it's like, do people like this? Do they want to hear the stories about me? But once I started to see that they saw themselves in the stories, and I was writing experiences that people could relate to, then that made me feel like more of a songwriter. But it is an interesting thing to write stories that are so true, that it's coming from a really vulnerable place. And there are times when I'm standing on stage and I live that moment again, and it makes me very emotional and just vulnerable, so vulnerable. But it feels really special to stand in front of people and to show them your true self and tell your true story, and like have this platform and then feel it accepted. That's really special.
There isn't 1,000 or 50,000 people in the crowd today, but I know that you are going to play one of my favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like to introduce Celeigh in her downtown apartment singing My Muse.
What would I do without you, my muse? And what would I do without you, my muse? Well, I'd wake up, I'd go to work, you're my sort of foe. I'd be in love and married, making babies, even on purpose. Sometimes I'd hold my head high when I walked into a bar, instead of heading for a corner where it's private and dark. But you fill me up with an intensity. I drive for more, but down a road where it's never good enough. I hadn't noticed it before, but you and me were never meant to be. It's a cliche, I know, but the seed has grown. I'm blooming later, but not last. I never feel the extreme of loving you and hating you all at the same time. I wouldn't be worried about running into him or her, not sure of which line, oh, which lie. Well, I'd wake up well rested, not hungover and busted, without feeling restless and sore. I'd feel life shining through these rusty bones once more. But you fill me up with an intensity. I drive for more, but down the road where it's never good enough. I hadn't noticed it before, but you and me were never meant to be. It's a cliche, I know, but the seed has grown. I'm blooming later, but not less. Well, you and me were never meant to be. It's a cliche, I know, but the seed has grown. I'm blooming later, but not less. And what will I do without you, my muse?
You mentioned when you are in the presence of an audience and you're in the moment on the stage, that you have feelings of being open and vulnerable. You're sharing your wounds, you're sharing your stories, you're opening up your life to an audience, and a huge audience, because you have such a public presence. I know that in the last maybe couple of years you've come to hit some struggles in your life and made some realizations about yourself, reflections about yourself, the family, the environment, being an Indigenous woman and being an Indigenous girl. So could you share with us today, which is a very intimate moment that we're moving into here, is a little bit about some of the mental health struggles that you've experienced? And I think that you said possibly the majority of your life.
Yeah, and that was something that, it was like a realization that I had last year around my 39th birthday. I realized that basically the last 20 years I've been struggling with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, overeating, just addictive behavior, self-sabotaging behavior, and I was like, what am I doing about this? And why am I doing this? And I basically had the realization that I had been self-medicating my depression and anxiety. These were all the things that I was doing to try to level myself out or balance myself out. And things were getting worse because when I performed, there's a lot of adrenaline that comes with it. There's a big high that comes from standing on stage and everyone's clapping for you and you feel amazing. And then you come off stage and that's all gone. And it's very easy for me to switch into a very deep low after that. There's lots of times I would come home from a trip to, I flew to Germany in March just for a festival, played this amazing festival, came home, and hung out in my apartment all by myself afterwards and felt very alone. And so the audiences were getting bigger, the shows were getting bigger, so the lows were getting lower. And I realized I had to do something about it. I really had to do something about it. And so I ended up going on medication, going on antidepressants. When I was 17, I was actually diagnosed with depression. And I took medication for a short time, but then I just stopped and I never revisited it again. So now I'm in therapy, I'm taking antidepressants, and I'm trying to bring balance back into my life. And you know, it's been an interesting time to do it, because I started doing therapy when COVID hit, because all of a sudden I was home and I could just meet with a therapist via Zoom in my home now. And it's actually been incredible, but it's been really difficult because there's a lot of things that I've been revisiting that, you know, things that are 20 years old that I've been carrying for so long. So it's a process, but it's so important for me because I have been bringing more balance into my life, and I feel like, you know, it's just like little tiny things that I'm changing, but it's making a big difference for me. And you know, I think this is going to be a lifelong thing for me, because it started so long ago. It started when I was a teenager, and I'm pretty sure that well, I know that my mother suffers from anxiety. I know my father suffers from depression. There's alcoholism on both sides of the family. There's, you know, trauma, so much trauma and abuse on both sides of the family. And I mean, because of my self-sabotaging behavior, put myself in a lot of dangerous positions over the years, and I've suffered my own traumas. Oh yeah, there's so many songs.
So many songs there.
So many songs, and I've written them. I've written some of them, but there are more coming. And my next album was supposed to be like this kind of like, it was supposed to be about euphoria and that feeling that you get when you've been sick and then all of a sudden you're feeling better. But what's happened is I've kind of been going back and forth between the two, because between therapy and then this year being so wild for me, like I've had a lot of really close deaths this year. And then also I won a Juno. So I mean, talk about highs and lows.
You won a Juno? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, highs and lows are just crazy. So trying to like to balance all of that while like going through therapy.
So I'm glad that you made that realization that you had been suffering greatly with depression. A diagnosis you got it at 19,
Mm-hmm.
and at 19 that was 20 years ago, and we would say, you don't get to say that out loud, Celeigh Cardinal.
Yeah.
Because it reflects poorly on everything.
Yeah.
Is for us to come out of that mental health closet and to say to everybody, you know what? It doesn't make me not perfect, but it does make me reflect on how I need to live a healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there being a lot of shame in being diagnosed as, you know, somebody who suffers from depression. Even for my parents, there was shame everywhere. And it was like, I wasn't doing good enough. And I spent a lot of time feeling like, I'm unhappy, but I guess this is just what life is. And so I just kind of existed in this space for a really long time. And once I really took a look at it, I realized how, like, once I started taking antidepressants, I very quickly, I felt like this lift, I felt this support. And even though it hasn't changed everything, like I still have ups and downs, I still live, you know, this career, this, you know, year, like I said, have been so massive, extreme ups and downs. They're still there, but I feel like I have support. It, like in a way, you know, how I wear glasses, they help me see better. Taking antidepressants helps me function better, and it keeps me more stable. And I know a lot of people are suffering from depression that are scared to take antidepressants, and it feels like something that they feel like they're like sedating themselves, or they're concerned that it's something that they're going to be dependent on. But to me, it is the same as a pair of glasses, and it's the support that I needed, and I wanted to express that publicly. And I had a lot of people, once I made a big post about it, because I do have a platform, and I think it's important because I felt the shift in me, and I was like, everybody who can feel this should.
Choose your solutions, try it. If you don't like it, try something else.
Yeah.
You said you had virtual support coming into
Yeah.
your home. I think that's so important, and Canada Helps has got that 1-800 number. It's open 24/7. They have 3,500 professionals.
Wow.
That you can pick up the phone anywhere in Canada or the Northwest Territory. Well, I guess that is
Yeah.
Canada, but like anywhere in the north,
Yeah.
the south, the east, the
Yeah.
west. You can pick up a phone and there's someone out there to talk to you and to help you work through some of these things, because this is a tough year. None of us knew that this was coming.
Yeah.
It's not quite as uncomfortable as being at war, but in fact we are at war, and we're almost at war with ourselves and now each other. Thank you so much for spending the time for International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I know that this is not news to you, but the recovery and the coming out the other side and coming out the other end in as a much better person, I think, within yourself, that I'm glad that you have shared some of your most intimate thoughts with us.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for giving me a space to share it. I think it's super important, and I really appreciate chatting with you anytime. As I stand at the sliding glass door, staring out on the night the streetlights shine, and the snow glistens in the reflection. I wonder how long before he sees I'm gone, and if he feels my thoughts going distant. And it's a shaky ground that I've been walking on, but I'm not alone in my travel anymore. Every road I take him with me, and every step I take, I fear is ruin, and every fear brings disheartened sights, and cold winter always been my time. Dark bring me inspiration, and sadness invite me to ride. But the sun, he is my strength. When it seems all that I give tends to break, and the more I give, the less there is to take. Well, these days I'm easily exhausted, and the ones I love, they take the brunt of all the stressing that we've been facing. Cold winter always